Good morning.
Good morning, Jenny White, 2025.
I know I haven't seen you in a whole year. What's going on with that?
Yeah. I don't know.
I know.
Time flies, I guess, when you're on the farm.
When you have, like I said earlier, 4 sets of lamb twins to take care of.
Yeah. That's right.
I was out this morning trying to get, because you have to feed the moms of twins. They have to get more, right? So that they can make sure that they can feed their little ones. So they have to get more. So you have to do this whole like sheep dance where you scare these out of the pen, and then you keep these in the pen, and then you feed these, and then you let, so it's a whole thing. And I looked down and went, holy cow, it's 8:45. I mean, didn't you get out of, haven't you kind of been out of the
Well, yeah, you texted me, and I thought we were going on next week, not this week. I was like, oh, whoa, I better.
Wait a minute, it's today?
Yeah.
Yeah, it did kind of come up fast, didn't it?
It did.
I kind of felt like the whole Christmas vacation thing went a little faster than I wanted it to.
No, that's how it is.
I feel like the older I get, the faster time goes. There's something wrong with that. Like time is a black hole and it just sucks you. I don't know. Anyway, so how was your New Year and your Christmas?
Good. Everybody's excited. Everybody's ready for this year.
Are they really?
Yeah. Kids are actually ready to go back to school. They were just telling me.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of interesting. Any specific reason why?
Yeah, they want to show off all their stuff.
I remember those days, though. Come on, yeah. I remember that.
Well, my youngest, he's 10 and he loves the NFL and all these receivers, and he got a couple jerseys that he wanted, but he really wanted this was his main Christmas present that he really wanted. He wanted to have all the chains that all the NFL guys wear when they're playing football.
I have no idea. I don't even watch football anymore, so I have no idea what that entails.
So he's got his big 3 gold chains and his big cross and all. So he's ready to go.
He's got his bling, huh?
Oh yeah, he's got his bling.
He's hooked up with his bling.
Yeah.
Okay, well, mine just seemed to go really fast, but I did get all children in one house at the same time for 3 hours.
Yeah.
It was fast. It was super exciting. I was like, oh, I remember these days. Yeah. And then they left again. So all right. Well, we've got a great show. I think it's a great show to begin the new year with, for sure, because this is a new nonprofit, and we have all the ladies with us for the nonprofit that are working with the nonprofit today. And I just think it's, we've talked with Mary at V1SUT about how necessary this particular nonprofit is. And so we need to talk to the ladies and find out what's going on with them and see what they've got planned for the upcoming year. So are you ready to bring them in?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's bring in former now Representative Sherrie Conley. How are you, Sherrie?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good.
And I still like to say the Sherrie Conley. That's what I like to say.
Well, I think that's what we should change it to. The. It's
I like that actually.
So are you excited for the new year?
I am. I'm looking forward to Trump getting back into office, and my youngest hopefully being able to afford to buy a house now. And I'm going to London in February for the Jordan Peterson Art Conference. That's going to be amazing.
What?
Yeah.
The what conference?
It's ARC. It's the Alliance for Responsible Citizenry or Citizenship.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's 3 days of nonstop speakers from all over the world that are, just trying to make the world a better place, and not DEI, not, the woke energy policies. It's all about being good humans, good, responsible citizens of the earth. And it's amazing. You should go check out last year's speakers. You're a James Lindsay fan, aren't you?
Well, I actually follow Jordan Peterson a lot more than I do James Lindsay.
Yeah, I love Jordan. Jordan. And James spoke there last year. The Baroness, what's her name, from over in the UK? She's one of the big ringleaders of it. And so, yeah, it's pretty amazing. Go check out some of the speakers and what they spoke on last year.
Well, hopefully you'll put some stuff up on your Facebook page about it, because that would be really interesting. I'd like to know. Yeah, that sounds like fun.
I know. I'm excited. I've never been across the pond, and so it's about a 13-hour flight.
Yeah.
And so we leave here on a Saturday at I think I'm flying out at 9:00 in the morning, but I've got about a 6-hour layover in Charlotte, and then we will be in London. It's like 6:00 in the morning when we land there. It's a 6-hour difference. It'll be midnight my time, but 6:00 their time. So,
and then how long will you stay?
We are going to be there from the 16th through the 26th. We're flying out on the 26th.
That's nice. Yeah, you can't go over there and not spend, a significant chunk of time. I mean, there's so much to see.
And I mean, this may be my one and only chance to get to go. I'm sad that my husband's not going with me, but I'm going with Suzanne Reynolds. Do you know her? Mm-hmm. So I'm going with Suzanne and her husband, and I think Kendra might be going with us.
Oh, wow.
I think she's trying to make arrangements to get to go. And so, yeah, it's going to be the conference, 3-day conference, and then the rest of the time we'll be sightseeing. I've been brushing up on my English history, and I have some things that I want to go do while I'm there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
well, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let's bring in Dayna, because we've got Dayna back there. Hey, Dayna, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Happy 2025.
Happy 2025. I still hit 2024 every time I'm typing. So
I know it takes a while to catch up, doesn't it?
It does. Yes.
So are you excited about 2025 too?
I am very much. 2024 was very rocky and busy, and I'm hoping for a better 2025. So.
Yeah. I'm with you. It'll be nice to see a new year and see what we've got. Hopefully, the possibilities are endless. And I think we've also got. Oh, we do. We have Roberta on, so I'll bring Roberta in. How are you, Roberta?
Hi, good morning.
I'm so glad we can hear you and see you, because I was a little worried.
I was worried for myself this morning, okay?
Hey, we were just talking about the fact that my partner even forgot that we had a podcast today.
Well, I didn't forget. I just, you know how it is.
I know. I was just trying to get on him is what I was trying to do. And then accidentally caught you in the middle. Sorry about that.
Oh.
Well, listen, guys, we had Mary on with UNSUT just recently before we went, on holiday break. And she's been talking, as you well know, about everything that's been going on in public schools and with kids. And now we talked to, we had Justin Humphrey on to talk about what's going on with DHS. And it just seems like for a red state, we're not doing a great job of keeping up our red principles. So I'm very glad. I know Michael and I are both very glad to have you guys on today to talk about broken trust and what's going to happen with you guys in 2025. So I'm going to just open it up and let you guys kind of go for it. I mean, does somebody want to give us, Sherrie, you want to start?
Sure. So the girls don't know this yet. This is coming up in Monday's board meeting. But I've been working on a concept. And if you've ever listened to James Lindsay, he does his little bullets where he, talks for 10 to 15 minutes about a certain topic. And, it's just a quick, here's what this means. And so I kind of got to thinking about what he's done and what has made him successful and able to get his message out. And so I thought, you know what, why don't we do some broken trust bullets, and we can talk about state policy just in a 10-minute, here's what this bill will do, here's what this law actually does, here's what parents' rights actually means in the state of Oklahoma, just touching on some of those things that people just they don't get the opportunity to study because they're busy with their lives. And so I thought, if we could put out there some little podcasts that are just, like I said, just quick little 10, 15-minute podcasts for them to listen to and understand what policy is, how it impacts their life, things that are going on in the schools and what they can do to help mitigate some of those things, and how to make education great again. And I was thinking this morning as I was getting ready, I thought, you know what? One of the problems that we're having right now is we've got DEI and SEL and sex education going on in the classrooms. And, we've been told we don't have enough time for art and music.
Yeah.
And yet we've got time for these other issues. And so I started thinking, you know what? Let's make education classical again. Because if we can... Do you like that?
I do. The only problem is then it's mace, and we don't want to get maced.
Right.
So,
yeah. So,
no, absolutely. Make education classical again. Amen.
Yeah. And
amen.
So if we were to bring back music education and art education, a civilized society appreciates, cultivates, and educates in arts and music. And so that includes literature. And, if kids can't appreciate the good literature, they can't read it, then they're not going to be, we're going to lose our civilized society through that. So let's make education classical again. And let's go back to art and music in the elementary schools. Because the thing is that if they've got it at the college level, right? But if you're not cultivating that in the young kids at the elementary level and then taking it into junior high and high school, they're not going, our arts programs at our colleges are going to die because of this.
Steph pointed out that it would be Mecca, which would, that would be interesting. So I wanted to point out something to just double down on what you said. For years, the classic writers have talked about how important music and art and good literature is in our understanding of God. Mm-hmm. And we had a discussion one time, I think it was here on the podcast. I don't remember, Michael, you'll have to help me, but we were talking about the fact that part of the reason why I believe we've become such an and I'm going to actually say anti-Christian, because there are so many facets of people anymore that are just, they're not only non-religious, they're almost anti-Christian. And I think part of the reason why we've had this, I don't even know how to explain it. I think there are a lot of reasons why it's happened, but I think one of the main reasons is you get that appreciation, I think, of art and of beauty, and beauty ties to God. And Mary just says art that is actually art, music that is actually beautiful, debate that is actually debate, literature that actually has value.
Yeah.
And that brings you closer to God, because all of those things are God-given talents. And just to hear the strains of a beautiful symphony, it just makes you feel, it puts you in an entirely different perspective. So I just am 100% behind that.
Yeah.
Well, and if I can chime in with one thing just on top of that, Jenny, I think it's important to really emphasize how important that human element is going forward, because, you know, as we know now with technology, you have computers and AI that can produce music, that can write music, that can do, you know, like the times of like people being graphic designers and stuff, that is getting ready to completely go away. I don't want to lose the human element of all that. I want to have humans involved in all that creativity and not just let everything go to AI and then we're just useless, you know, nothings. I mean, I think it's massively important that we educate these kids from day one that they are the creators. They can create their own life. They can create art and music, and they can be in charge of all that, and not just be an input for, you know, AI in one way or another.
Yeah.
100%.
What's good, what's beautiful, and what is true. That's what we need to focus on.
I agree. And everything else kind of springs from that. And that's that's the one thing that I did learn when I started to homeschool that I hadn't been taught as a teacher, was that so long as you just have fundamentals and a love of beauty, everything else comes. It comes.
That's right.
So that's very exciting. I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
Make sure to tag us in all of those videos so that we can, you know, get those out.
I will. I absolutely will. Girls, I hope you're ready.
The girls are like,
ready or not. Ready or not.
Yep.
Well, Dayna, what do you have kind of a focus with your association with Broken Trust? Do you have, I mean, what are your thoughts for the year?
Well, I mean, at the forefront for us is always what's happening in our schools, you know, and being able to talk about that and, you know, put that out there for people, especially for people who don't think that that's happening in our schools. I don't know how many more examples people could need just in the state of Oklahoma. I mean, forget the nation at this point, but it is definitely a problem across the nation. But specifically here in Oklahoma, we hear all the time, that's not happening, you know, or that's not how that goes, or you know, or that kid's just making that up, or that's not really what that, you know, all those types of things, right? So, so that's always at the forefront for us for 100%. But aside from that, I've kind of, you know, done a little sidestep into what's going on with DHS and what's happening with many of those families across Oklahoma and the nation, of course. But it is definitely a problem in Oklahoma, as you've seen by, you know, what you've heard from Justin Humphreys, you know, other organizations. There's multitudes of them across the state working on DHS stuff and trying to get that information out to the people. So I think that that's important for 2025, is just continuing, you know, advocating for the victims of DHS or the survivors, and then just trying to get their kids back and where they belong. You know, we're seeing too many reasons or times, where they should have never been taken in the first place. And they're being given to the abuser instead of the one that was taking care of them. It's not a one-off, you know, like we often will hear. It is one of those things that just has to be stopped for the sake of the children, because they're not getting help, right? This is not about helping parents do what's best for their kids. This is about something entirely different. So, and in addition to that, now we're seeing DHS contracting with our public schools. So now we're kind of integrating our initial mission with DHS and the schools. So we're working on getting an example of that contract with the schools. But I will say, in speaking to some school employees, that they're being told that there are additional counselors coming into the schools. So that's how they're selling it to the school boards, from what I'm understanding and speaking to a couple of them. So, which is entirely not what the case is. So it's just a matter of education, I think.
And then I'm going to ask this: didn't we under didn't we under Joy Hoffmeister have this huge push to get counselors into public schools, and we had, and it was all through that American School Counselors Association, which was the one that was just shoving in all the DEI. So how many more school counselors do we need?
Well, according to statistics, we're actually low on school counselors per, as far as how many students they can have. Yeah. So, they're claiming they need help.
Yeah, I think that part of that, the reason for that is that the money that was given during that time was a temporary funding. And so that funding ran out. And so when it did, then the counselors went away. And so that's part of the problem that we're seeing, like with the ARPA dollars, that came out during COVID. And actually, I'm just sitting here wondering if the ARPA dollars was connected to the counselor push. But yeah, once you get federal dollars that are temporary, and we're seeing this with some of the schools say, well, we're losing allocations because we're losing ARPA dollars. But it was very specific in, from my point of view, when we talked about ARPA dollars in the state of Oklahoma, we said through the legislature, make sure that you are not creating positions that you cannot pay for after these dollars run out. Yeah. Use this for something other than, a position that you're going to go, well, I can't pay these people anymore because the ARPA money's running out. And so I think that's part of what we're seeing with the counselors.
Well, I guess my question also would be, and somebody else can, Becky said, don't the new rules just proposed by Walters limit counselors in schools? I didn't know that.
I haven't read them, so I
haven't read them either, Becky. I don't know. And Steph asks what kind of dollar, so she was definitely on the same line that you are.
Yeah. Taxpayer dollars.
So I guess, why through DHS though? I mean, do we have an answer for that as to why the counselors would be coming? Do you think it's a funding issue? There's funding at DHS, and so that's why they would use that?
I mean, that's always possible. I haven't heard of a specific reason. The contracts are that, DHS funds 80% of the payroll for that particular person, and then the schools fill in the 20% along with providing them the office space and the email and all the things, right, that go along with being, because they're actually going to be a school employee. Everything goes through their payroll as normal. It's just that DHS will be reimbursing them that 80% of their cost for that one employee. Now, every school is going to be different. Sometimes they'll just have one, and sometimes, they could have one per site, even. We've got some that'll have them at like intermediate levels, but they will take care of pre-K through 12, for that specific area. But they also kind of pass them off as like resource people, right? Like if the parents need help with food, or, because they're there to help. According to this is how they're presenting.
Because government is always good at providing help.
That's right. So, but we also know that the schools are a primary referral source for DHS. So it really only makes sense for them to bring them in at this point. Now, the other part of this is educating parents on what happens when they come to your door, or what happens if your kids don't come home from school that day. Those are the realities that people are going to have to start thinking about with them coming in the schools. At last count, I had on my list 39 schools in Oklahoma that are currently have DHS caseworkers in their schools. One is actually in process at this time. They haven't finalized the contract yet. And
wait, not counselors, but actual caseworkers?
They're calling them either school-based specialists or school-based family specialists. And they will be there to help them, as I stated earlier, with the resources, but also if they need help signing up for services of DHS, your Medicaid, your food stamps, any services that they provide, it's now part of this one-stop shop. And they are part of that, school-based healthcare. There's like a connection between that and bringing those in.
Creating community schools. Yeah,
that's right. So it's very much part of all that that they're trying to do with that. But it's like a one-stop shop. You don't even have to go out to the office. You don't have to go online, and you just go to the school now, and
so let me give you some background, because this program was kind of piloted by the counties back several years ago. When I worked in Oklahoma City as an administrator, we had social workers from the county that came in to our school 1 or 2 days a week, and the teachers made referrals to those workers, and they did everything from family interventions, health and food interventions. I'm trying to think all of the different services that were offered through that, but that was through the county. And now I want to say that once that didn't last very long. It seems like the next year, that was gone. And so I'm wondering if the county funding went away, and now we're getting, this has got to be federal dollars, right? Because it's not anything that I recall voting yes for in a budget. This would have been something, I don't know, line item that would have had to have been in there for this. I'm guessing that this is all federal dollars. It's coming down through DHS to do this.
Well, Mary chimed in just a second ago, and she said years ago there were DHS caseworkers at many high-risk schools. That stopped for a reason. It will be interesting to see if an in-school DHS worker ever reports an educator abuser.
Mm-hmm. It absolutely will.
Boy, I think that's a good, and I'll just say briefly an experience that I had when my kids were actually in public school and elementary school. We had a friend, because I had adopted children and she had adopted children, and you know how that works. You kind of gravitate to people, who have similar things going on. And we were talking one day, and she said that one of her adopted daughters was on a medication that was it was like an ADHD medication, but it was making her sick and causing, quite a number of problems. And she had just been kind of stepping it down in favor of, trying to get her off of that, and then using some other, whatever you want to call it, some other ways of dealing with it outside of medication. And she told me that a DHS worker came to her at the school and removed her daughter because she was stepping down her medication.
Yeah, so it's your business.
Yeah. And I think that's the concern that I would have if we were doing that. And that's been 20 years ago, maybe 18 years ago. If we were doing that then, and they were getting away with doing stuff like that then, how much worse is this going to get if they've got somebody planted in the school?
Yeah, so it kind of takes me back to remembering that 7 years ago now, whenever I was in Oklahoma City as the administrative intern, they had stopped allowing outside counselors to come in and pull kids out of classrooms. Because I don't know if you recall when you were in school or teaching that if we had a student who was seeing a counselor for whatever reason, and it was a counselor that was not associated with the school, that counselor could come to the school. They had to be registered, with the school. They had to have background checks and had to have their license and everything, and the paperwork documenting the counseling with the office. But they were allowed to come into the school, pull the child out of the classroom, counsel them for 30 minutes or 45 minutes or whatever, and then send the child back to the classroom. Well, Oklahoma City at some point stopped that and made the decision that they were not going to allow outside counselors into the school, and that the parents had to make the arrangements that if their kids were going to see a counselor, it had to be outside of the school day. Because it was too disruptive to their school day in order, for the child to have an uninterrupted day in the classroom. And so I don't know if that was I'm not sure what happened with that. I'm not sure why that started. But now that just opens the door, right, for them to say, well, we're going to have our own counselors in here. So you can send your child to this counselor. And what are they doing? They are billing insurance companies, AKA Medicaid, and getting funding. And I mean, they're doing that for physical therapy. They're doing that for auditory therapy and all kinds of therapies that were once paid for by the school because they paid the person that they were employing, and there was no way to get compensated for that. And so those services now that are being paid for by insurance company, like I said, AKA Medicaid. And so the schools are getting funding from the state to pay their teachers, and then they are getting reimbursement from Medicaid where they can for those students who have it for providing those services. So they're calling it recouping their money, recouping their funding is what they're calling it.
Why does everything evil always seem to start with money? It's just crazy to me. I mean, just because you have the money doesn't mean you have to spend it, or you don't have to ask for the money in the first place for something that a parent could do. So, well, how are you planning on, I mean, what's the biggest kind of push for you in this particular situation, Dayna? How can we help you get information out? I mean, what can people follow? I mean, tell us information there.
Well, I'm actually trying to put together some educational information about this. What can parents do if this happens to them? It's, if their kid doesn't come home, if they get a call, what can they do? What are some of the things that they can do? My first thing and my very first thing I tell everybody is don't tell them anything. Don't say anything, because our first instinct though as parents, right, is we want to answer their questions because we didn't do anything, right? So this is just something to keep in mind, is that no matter what your answers are, they're going to turn them into you being a monster, right? And they're going to use that as having a reason to justify what they're doing. If your child's having behavior issues at school, they're going to use that to say, they're having an issue, let's pull them in. They're causing this trouble in class. Their grades aren't very good, and then they're going to start talking to them about what those issues are at home. They're going to start questioning them about their parents, their home life, all those different types of things. And they're going to, interpret that accordingly so that they have justification to pull them into custody. And that's before they ever even call the parents. So and this is not at all to scare people, this is realistic, type of situations, to where if your kid's upset with you that morning, you didn't have the right cereal that they wanted or whatever, and they go to school and they're mad about it. Well, they don't take the time to question that whole scenario, right? It's more about, you didn't give them food. You're trying, you don't have the food in the home. You don't have the right, those types of things. They don't ask the right questions, and they don't care for the right information either. So for me, it's about where we have to educate, because otherwise it's going to happen to you and you're going to have no idea what you're doing. And you're going to, what we think are the right things are the wrong things, right? So that's what I'm doing. So as soon as I get that stuff put together, we'll certainly be putting it out. I hope to have that here in the next couple weeks finished, but
we'll include that information. Yeah, we'll include that information too in those bullets or whatever we end up calling them. Mm-hmm.
Good.
And we have to make it kind of as condensed, kind of like what Sherrie's talking about, a Cliff Notes version of these, because if, most people aren't going to take the time to read the bills, they're not going to take the time to read the articles that we put out. And so certainly the more condensed we can make it is going to be better. A piece of paper, version, something
a
like
meme.
that they can, correct.
A meme, exactly.
That, they can almost just carry around with them, when needed. And I hope that nobody ever needs it, right? But based off of previous, interactions that people are having, people need this information. So that's what I'm working on. So as soon as we get that out, and people are certainly welcome to email us. Sherrie and I have our emails up on the screen, so you're welcome to email us if you have questions, and we'll do what we can to help answer those questions.
Good deal. Well, Roberta, you're up next.
Hi. I just want to touch on some things that Dayna and Sherrie said. I've been taking notes in here so I can touch up on those. But that's basically with DHS coming into our schools. That's what they've done. They've turned it into a one-stop shop for not only DHS, but all of your mental health care, all of your physical health care. You didn't get shots at school. You didn't used to get shots at school. You didn't get dental work at school. You didn't do these things, but your school has always had a counselor. There's always been a counselor there. Why now do we need to compensate? Why do we need to double dip? We're already paying a counselor. So now we're going to go double dip and get our money back from Medicaid or get our money back from the insurance companies. Where does that money go once you're compensated, once the school is compensated? And so what it does when you bring Medicare or bring DHS into the schools, all it does is put the dollar signs on the heads of all of those kids walking through school.
That's right.
And just like Dayna was saying, you put little Johnny to bed at night and you go in and he's on his phone and you take his phone away from him, you're grounded from your phone, and little Johnny goes to school the next day and he's sad and he's all bummed out. And the counselor gets a hold of him and, next thing you know, he's depressed and they're calling a mental health facility and little Johnny's in a mental health facility. And nobody cared to call mom and say, what's going on with little Johnny? Because there's so much money in mental health. And I tell people all the time that a bad mental health professional, a bad psychiatrist can turn a good kid around. I mean, they can turn a good kid bad in a heartbeat.
Well, I mean, we just had Dr. Mather on before Christmas who talked about that very similar thing. I mean, we've had so many people on who are actually corroborating everything that all three of you are saying. So it's not like you guys are coming on and just, spouting off. I mean, We've had considerable discussions with all kinds of people in the community about these same things. And I think one of the concerns that I have, because I've seen it pop up. Well, I mean, and you guys probably feel the same. Trump got elected, so everything's fine now. We'll just all not worry about it.
No. We're just getting started.
Yes.
We are just getting, the battle has just begun. And, going back to what kind of the theme has been here, but not really said bluntly, is that what has happened is that the government swamp and corporations too, to be honest, have put a dollar sign on the forehead of children. And now our children are a commodity to be traded and to be used as a money maker. And frankly, it's sickening. And so we've got to figure out how to get back in control of what is how our children are being used by these corporations and by these businesses and by the government, frankly, and educate our children so that they can be good citizens and stop all of this nonsense about using them to make money, to get rich.
Well, but they're never going to say that. They're the only thing they ever say is, we could probably all say it together in unison, it's for the kids, right? I mean, it's always that. And then nothing that they ever do actually ever helps kids. I mean, or we wouldn't be in the position that we are now, 49th in education, where we've got only 15% of kids that are proficient in reading and math. That's ridiculous. If all of this money, if all of this stuff we've ever done in Oklahoma, pulling money from taxpayers' pockets and then saying it's for kids had ever worked, we would be number one in the nation. We would be number one in the world for everything.
Yeah. So there's been more money invested in education in the state of Oklahoma over the last 6 years than any time in history, and our outcomes are lower than any time in history. I have said we need to go back to what we were doing prior to House Bill 1017 and go back to those past skills that we had before, update them, of course, for the 21st century learner, But it needs to go. I know I don't like that term, but we've got to be honest about, computers and technology and things like that. But just the idea that we have turned our children into a commodity and stopped educating them to be good humans and good citizens. It's just we've got to stop it, and we've got to turn it around.
100%. So Roberta, what else did you have? You had something else you said.
Yeah. Sorry, Roberta.
Well, no. And the thing is that when you bring in mental health, when somebody brings in mental health to your children, you as a parent lose all rights to make decisions. If a counselor comes in and decides that your child needs mental health, you don't get to make those. No more decisions. You have no more rights. They decide. They decide what's best for your child. A person that has been in a room for 30 minutes with your child gets to decide what's best for your child that you've raised all these years.
Well, and we had TSF Smith, who I'm sure all of you guys know, come on and say exactly that exact same thing happened to her. So again, people who are thinking, y'all are crazy, this doesn't happen in Oklahoma. Trump, whatever. Yeah. I mean, yes, it is happening here. Wake up. Sorry, Roberta, go ahead.
No, they are medically kidnapping our children at a rate unseen before because there's dollars, children. Because children will pull at the heartstrings of everybody. We'll give children all the money. We'll throw billions of dollars in Oklahoma money to education for our children. We'll throw billions of dollars for mental health for our children. And it's not doing any good. It's getting worse. And the same people are making money and money and money and money. And it's created almost this black market for our children. And parents no longer have rights. Our government is raising our children for a dollar amount. And it's not doing any good. We spend over half of our budget in Oklahoma half of the budget in Oklahoma goes to education. And this is where we're at. Over half of the budget, billions of dollars. And so
if you add in healthcare, like our socialized healthcare system that's gone completely amok, as David Bullard came on and talked about, then we're almost, isn't it right? Almost 3/4 of the budget when you add in healthcare and education.
Yes. So, but the bottom line, if you want to look at the bottom line of all this, is we can make all of the laws, we can make all of the legislation. And if you're not going to enforce it, which is the problem that we have with the predators in our schools, if you're not going to enforce it, it doesn't matter. You can write everything you want to write and it can be nice and say all the things. But if your DAs are not going to enforce them, if your school resource officers are not going to report them, if there are no consequences for covering it up, then it'll continue. And that's what we have right now. We have DAs that will not enforce. We have DAs that will come on the record and say it just costs too much money. It costs too much money to charge these people. It costs, it's over our budget. When did our children, why is it over your budget? To enforce the laws. This is what you're elected to do. Why is it over your budget? And furthermore, when you go into these schools and you look at all of the people that knew, every time, all of the people that knew, why are we not charging the people that knew? Right along with the perpetrator. The people that covered it up, they all should be charged right along with them. And nobody is charging them. And it comes down to money. Well, there's not enough money in our budget to do that.
Well, I think it also comes down to culture, as Mary's pointed out. And I'm going to go back just 1 second, if you don't mind, Roberta. Mary said when we were talking about kids and them, picking them up, DHS, for example, picking up kids or counselors turning in kids. She says, so true. Teens who do one stint at an inpatient mental health care pick up additional concerning behaviors, drop off an anxious child, and pick up a self-harmer who's questioning their gender. And that's exactly what TSS Smith said. So yes, it's not, we're not making it up. We're not trying to be outrageous to get people to watch. It just is what it is. So I'm sorry, Roberta, continue.
Well, I mean, and it happened to me. I mean, my son was kidnapped and held hostage, you know.
Well, tell that story briefly, because that is a very concerning story.
Yes, it was 3 years ago. 3 years ago, almost to the date, December 17th, as a matter of fact. And, you know, my kid had just come in from hunting with his dad. He was excited. He made a video. It had with him taking apart a gun, one of our firearms, and putting it back together. He posted it on Snapchat, and the school never even saw it. A student from the school saw it, and she was concerned for my son's safety. Not that he threatened anybody, not that he, you know, did anything illegal. She was concerned because he was playing with a firearm, you know, at the house. And the school just, I mean, they just lost it. They called, you know, law enforcement. Of course, law enforcement calls mental health. They come to my home. They raided my home. They took my guns from my home. DHS came into my home. They spent 14 hours in my home going through every drawer, every cabinet, you know, under every bed of my home. They couldn't find anything that I was doing wrong with my children, but they demanded a district judge demanded that I put my child into a mental health facility for letting him hunt, for letting him, you know, work on guns, handle guns, things like that. I had to put him in a mental health facility. And then they held him there for 14 days. They wanted him to say things that were not true. When he wouldn't cooperate with them, they would give him medication at nighttime to make him sleep. And then they would go in at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning and get him out of bed and bring him in for interrogation at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning after they've medicated him to make him say these things that were not true. Luckily, he was smart enough. He had a good enough head on his shoulders, you know, to not cooperate with them. But they, you know, all of this over something that's not even illegal. And it took me years. I'm still dealing with the sheriff's department, who continues to harass my family over this because I speak out. You speak out against it, and they just harass and harass and harass. And so when I say that they can come into your house, this should scare everybody. Mental health should scare everybody, because mental health, they can come in and they can take a child and you have no rights. I mean, I would have beat down walls to get to my kid, and I have no rights to him for the 14 days. And by the way, I'd like to say my child was on Medicaid at the time. And for those 14 days, Medicaid was paying the full price. And when I finally got him out of there, he was in there for 14 days. On the 15th day, the morning of, they called me at 5 o'clock in the morning and told me to come pick him up. They had him bagged up in trash bags. They had him sitting on a bench outside. Told me to come pick him up. 14 days prior, they wanted to charge him with domestic terrorism, but they told me to come pick him up. I came and picked him up. I found out that Medicaid only they will pay full price for 14 days of treatment without a diagnosis. So
unless
they diagnose him.
Yeah, from an insurance standpoint, they had to get him to say certain things to extend that 14-day period. And he wouldn't, since he wouldn't cooperate, he wouldn't say those magic words, then they couldn't justify holding him any more than that 14 days. So if that doesn't tell you it's about money, I don't know what does.
Absolutely. He spent Christmas of 2021 in a mental hospital. My child did. And so that's what I'm saying. You know, a bad counselor, I mean, they tried to convince him of all kinds of things. And I mean, like I said, if he wouldn't have had a good head on his shoulders, we would have still been dealing with that. I think if he would have been younger, he was 14 at the time. If he would have been a younger kid, we'd have still done it. When I tried to take him out of there, I revoked my consent. I went in there, I tried to take him out. The Oklahoma County District Attorney got involved, and they came in and said, "We'll take your daughter too. Keep messing with us and we'll take your daughter. Sit down and be quiet." That's what they told me.
So Ginger asked it. This was in Oklahoma.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Tell her what county it was.
This is Pottawatomie County.
And what school district?
Tecumseh School District. So we are no longer with that school district, but when they put him in Oklahoma County, then it transferred over to Oklahoma County. So we have multiple counties, and it was Oklahoma County that threatened to charge me they got my son at some point in the night to sign a order of detention. The mental hospital did, giving the mental hospital rights to him. And you know that in Oklahoma, the legal consent is 12 years old for your children anymore. So once your child hits 12 years old, your child has to give you consent for their records in Oklahoma.
I thought it was 13. Is it 12?
I believe it's 12. Either way, my son was 14. But they convinced him to sign himself over to the mental hospital.
That's crazy.
And what was the school district again?
Say again?
What was the school district again?
Tecumseh.
Yes.
Tecumseh.
So Mary just wanted to point out she does have your story up on her website. So you guys that are watching, make sure you go to V1SUT and look up Roberta's story so that you can actually have that right there. And I'll add it to the clip, because we'll make a clip of your story too and get it out, because I think, you know, Ginger saying this was in Oklahoma. I think so many people don't understand. And I think here's the problem, because I was thinking about this while you were talking, Roberta. Here's the disconnect. Over 60% of the population in Oklahoma voted for President Trump.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about us being a red state. National publications refer to Oklahoma as a red state. We talk about that as ourselves. We talk, you know, we don't even talk about it as much as we used to, but, you know, we used to talk about the fact that we were part of the Bible Belt. So people have this, and the majority of our legislature is Republican. So if you go and you look, we have an overwhelming number of Republicans in our legislature. So people who aren't involved in politics, people who don't watch the I'm going to say the alternative news, like, you know, Rope Report, people who don't do that kind of thing really can't conceive that this kind of thing would happen in Oklahoma because of all of the above.
Yeah.
And I think we've got to get people, more than anything, I think we have to get people to understand that an R behind a name, or the idea of a color, does not do anything. It's completely meaningless, because what we have is we have a bunch of Republicans in power, yes, but we have a bunch of Democrats who have been infused themselves into DHS, into every portion of the Oklahoma Foundation that provides any kind of help, government assistance to the people of Oklahoma. So all of those agencies are full of Democrats, and then you have DAs that come in that are basically paid. I mean, they're given a lot of money by the people who try to get them in there, and I think it has something to do with that George Soros DA program, because we have such poor DAs in Oklahoma. Every time, Michael, you and I do an interview with people, they always say, well, but the DA wouldn't prosecute. The DA wouldn't prosecute. I don't have any clue as to how we can get people to understand that the basis of government in Oklahoma, the people who are actually doing the work, by far are not red. They don't care about your liberties. They care about government and creating more government. They care about authority. That's why they're in government. So
well, they care about money. And when you have federal money that can just be printed into oblivion, and there's, you know, like when it comes to DHS and then you get Medicaid, I mean, that's just federal dollars flowing into a program, and there's no accountability for that anywhere. I mean, they can just keep printing, keep doing whatever they want.
And that's the problem. So while people are thinking to themselves, oh, this can't happen in Oklahoma, we are red. We're the people who matter aren't. They're not. Yeah. And the people who have the R's by their names, by, I'm going to have to say a vast majority, or things would be different in Oklahoma, are getting, I don't know, maybe money, campaign funds. They're getting entertained by lobbyists. I don't know what's going on, but these people that are up there aren't doing the job of protecting citizens from government. So now you've got two problems there. Sorry, Sherrie, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying I did.
Yeah, I'm saying
No, you
besides
did.
Sherrie.
Yeah.
No, but I mean,
few.
Sherrie, you've talked about that before, about how you were one of the few in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what is so sad is that I was having a conversation with a former colleague earlier this week, and the conversation went to you get elected and you go to that building, and the only thing that you hear is what is happening inside that building. You forget about the outside, and you forget about why you went there. People go there with good intentions all the time, and then they forget, or they get misguided, and they misunderstand what their duty is there. And I mean, even though they swear to the Constitution, to defend the people of Oklahoma, that a lot of them get up there and they start defending the agencies for the committees that they sit on. And so when that happens, then they start becoming part of the problem with the government. I mean, that whole, hi, I'm from the government, I'm here to help. No, we go there as an elected official to stand in the gap between the government and the people. And that's not what's happening. People are losing focus about why they went there in the first place, unless they went there for the wrong reason. But a lot of my colleagues, good people, that went there for the sole purpose of standing in the gap and doing the right thing for the people, and then they end up on the side of the agencies, and they don't. And I think that they get blind to it. Like I said, they hear what's going on inside the building, and they concentrate on what's happening inside that building and not what's happening outside in the state.
Sherrie, let's look at just the most local level. Your local school board member is literally a cheerleader for the school. Instead of being the boss and holding them accountable, they're literally the biggest cheerleader. The school does nothing wrong. They're the greatest ever. Whatever. I mean, look, that's just how that indoctrination process. I mean, that just must be how it goes.
Well, yeah. I think what Julie said is perfect. The elected defend the people who fund them. Well, and I'm going to even add themselves and their organizations. I mean, I don't know how many people. Well, she said campaigns, but I think that that's true too. I mean. Yeah. You've got what is the Oklahoma? Oh, you guys help me. It's the one that Joe Dorman runs.
OICA.
And they're up at the Capitol in an interim study trying to get homeschoolers to get sucked into a program because we don't know what's going on with them and they're unsafe. Well, all of these coaches and teachers who are abusing school students, the DAs aren't prosecuting any of those people, but we're going to go after homeschool kids who aren't. I mean, it's so ridiculous. And yet the legislature loves the OICA. Well, Joe Dorman was a former legislator. We'll have him come in. We like Joe. He was a Democrat former legislator. And you've got Republicans throwing their arms around him and talking about how great Joe Dorman and OICA is. I mean, so what do you do? I think it goes right back to what Julie said.
Yeah, I think educating the people. We've got to educate the voters. We've got to educate the common public to get them to understand that. I had a thought just a second ago. Oh, I know what it was. I was going back to, you made a post earlier today or yesterday about Governor Stitt and Speaker Hilbert standing on removing cell phones from schools. And, and I just want to look at that and go, and I'm going to include Joe Dorman in this too. Why are they not talking about bullying and sexual assault in schools? If you really cared about kids and the welfare of children, have I heard from Joe Dorman? No, I haven't. I have not heard from him. Why has he not reached out to me and said, Sherrie, what is going on? Tell me what you're basing all of this on, asking me for my research and the documentation on this. if you really care about children, that would be the place you would start, right?
Excellent point. And I'm actually going to go live about at 1:00 today to talk about that particular article that you just talked about. And because I don't think I wrote it because I don't think people understand how far off track our legislature is.
Completely.
For the House Speaker to say something that, and I'm going to use the term ignorant because that's just flat ignorance. Why do we even have school boards if we're going to keep the state monkeying in, public schools that are supposed to be run by local school boards? It's crazy. And they'll say on one hand, well, we need to leave the local school board to do that, when it's something like protecting children, but by God, they'll get in the middle of that. I mean, it's so dumb.
Yeah.
I think that so much of what they do is a distraction from the real problem.
Excellent.
Right? And so just that,
Yes.
predators in schools, why should that should be all over the place, every news station. It doesn't matter, you're big, small, whatever. That is a huge problem. If it was really about protecting children at the end of the day, then that's what we'd be hearing about from our legislators, instead of being afraid to get involved. Oh, I'm not touching that. I can't get involved in that. Oh, I don't want to touch that. And then now you've got this, the cell phone policy thing. The cell phone policy is nothing more than part of the Agenda 2030 plan. It's a part of the, Jenny, we talked about this about a year and a half ago. I was on when we talked about smart cities and education. And this is part of that agenda that they're now bringing in. And it has nothing to do with what they're telling you it is. They're saying it's a distraction. They're saying it's about the kids and their academics. No, this is DEI. This is part of that agenda, 100%. I just went back and pulled more information yesterday and sent it out to someone because they were asking about this, following that picture of Governor Stitt on, on social media with the school superintendent, I think, where they've passed an official no cell phone policy, the bell to bell or something that they're calling it. So I always say, look past what they're saying. It's not ever what they say it is, right? Like, where are the people supposed to be protecting the children? Where are they? I mean, reaching out to legislators, it's crickets most of the time, to be honest on this. Look at the legislators who have spoken out about this. A couple, have either, whether they've been threatened or they've lost their chairmanships or, whatever it is, right? I mean, look at what Sherrie went through when she was in the legislature and trying to get people to, just to hear her, right?
Well, and let's go back to this because I think it makes the point with the cherry on the top. How many times, Sherrie, when you were advocating against these dirty books in public schools, and how many times were you told, even by your legislator friends, hey, that's a local issue. The school board should be handling that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They say exactly that when they don't want to mess with it, when they don't want to put their head out there and feel like they're trying to stand up for anything, they'll use that excuse. Well, that's a local issue. But then you ask them to do anything else, or they want cell phones. It's just, I can't even. I get so mad, my brain stops working.
Yeah,
it's how they pass the buck.
Thought.
It's just like how they're passing the buck, but when they have these local control responsibilities, they're failing at them. I mean, that's the only way I could put it. I mean, if we have people who are covering up for predators in our schools and allowing them to quietly leave and go somewhere else without any recourse, that's not protecting children. That's protecting you and the school.
Yeah,
right?
The only time the legislature should be stepping in is when the schools fail to do their job. And so in this case, with the sexual predators, with the books in the libraries, the bullying situations that we've got going on, Kingfisher is a perfect example of the bullying that got out of control. And now they have that $5 million that the taxpayers are having to deal with. And so, I look at those situations and it kind of goes to what you were saying, Jenny, is that they want to say it's local control until they want to control what happens at the local level. And you know what? I kind of feel like it's a situation where the school leadership are allowing that mutual kind of a abuse situation of that's a local thing. Because if you think about like the teacher raises, for example, and the raises for the support staff, what do they say? What do the schools and the superintendents and OEA and all of the initial organizations, they tell the teachers, well, we need funding from the state in order to give you a raise. So they're blaming it on the legislature for not giving their teacher raises. But then the legislature is going back and using that same thing. Oh, that's a local control issue. And so they are agreeing to use that topic to not face the situations that need to be addressed in our public schools at this time. If we want Oklahoma education to be great again, we have got to sit down and at the table. We've got to make the decisions that we are going to address the situations that are causing our students to fail in so many aspects. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm not campaigning. I promise.
No, I mean, but you're right. And you've got a really good perspective because you've been on the inside. You know what it looks like. Mary just said, if they take the cell phones, which I get, they need to stop fighting parent accessible cameras in all school spaces. And so that just made my brain switch on to the fact that maybe part of the reason why they don't want cell phones in schools is because they don't want kids coming, recording a teacher going off on some rant or an administrator doing something. They don't want that getting out there. So they're going to control those cell phones. So I kind of see what she's saying. I mean, if we're going to take the cell phones, you better put a CCTV camera in every classroom.
But the other side of that is that even if you take the cell phones away and you're trying to hold these kids accountable to a rule, you can't discipline in school anymore. I mean, so unless you take out that part of it where you can discipline again and parents, are holding their kids accountable for their actions. When my kids were younger, if you were in trouble at school, you were in trouble at home. It didn't matter what it was, right? If, because there are rules to be followed. Yes, we don't always like the rules, but those were the rules as far as where you were and you had to respect them, right? Now so many kids run their households and, so until you can put discipline back in there, teachers can discipline because we have some amazing teachers out there. Amazing.
We absolutely do.
But they cannot discipline, and these kids run all over them. So even if you take the cell phone away, which initially you're going to see a huge increase in behavior issues, I'm betting, because they're so reliant on those phones, right?
Addicted. They're addicted.
Absolutely addicted. Much better word. So if they can't truly discipline, not the Skittles and stickers approach that they often use now, but you have to be able to do that or it won't work. So what they're suggesting is, okay, take the cell phones out. Fine. But you've got to be ready for everything else that comes behind that. And no one's addressing that part of it. So,
well, and here's the issue with that, Dayna, you bring up a really good point, because if they're not going to enforce the laws that are on the books for bullying, what makes us think that they're going to enforce the laws for cell phone usage? Every school has a cell phone policy, but do they enforce that cell phone policy? Because I promise you, after being an educator for 35 years, you don't need a state law to ban cell phones in the classroom if you've got good policy at the school and then the school leadership backs that policy up with parents, with the kids, with everyone. I mean, it's like you put it in your bag, you can have it in your bag, you can have it in the classroom, but you can't get it out unless you absolutely have to have it. And in those cases, like an emergency, somebody was saying, I was reading something on this the other day where there was a second grader that called the police when somebody came in, and I don't remember the specifics, what state it was in, but it was a second grader that alerted the police to an intruder in the building.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, just for that alone, that makes me go, yeah, I'm thinking I don't want the cell phones out of the classroom now. We live in a different society today. Do I want them sitting on them if I'm a teacher and I'm standing up trying to give a lecture? Do I want them on their phones? No, I do not. But that's where me, as a classroom leader, I put the policies in place and I say that goes in your bag and it doesn't come out unless I give you permission to take it out, or in a case of an emergency. And we'll talk about what an emergency looks like, and you set that policy and you're firm with it. I mean, it has to happen at the classroom level, but the classroom teacher also has to be backed up by their leadership in their school building. And then the leadership is going to have to stand up to the parents when the parents push back on the policies that are put in place. Let's think about safety and put safety procedures in place and then enforce those policies.
But
well, Ginger pointed out,
take out the Chromebooks. If it's about the devices as a distraction, take out the Chromebooks.
Amen.
Well, I'll tell you, I'll give you a little example. Jenny, you can go ahead and read her comment.
Yeah, let me just do that real fast. So
address that.
Ginger points out that she's had numerous calls from teachers who are being beaten by students. And I've heard that too. And again, that goes back to, the administration not creating a discipline policy and being on that. I mean, I left teaching. One of the reasons why I left teaching is that I had a disruptive student. I took him by the shoulder and took him out and put him in the hallway. I've told this story 100 times. And he went to the principal and said that I was, manhandling or being too rough or, whatever was going on, or what he said. And so then then I got in trouble from the administration about it. I'm like, well, wait a minute. How do I not have the right to remove a student who is ruining the learning time for 99% of the other kids in the classroom? So it's bad. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
Well, what I was going to say is on that leadership side, and Sherrie can come back in on this side, but on that leadership side, they can't even enforce dress code. I mean, look at how, let alone discipline. Yeah, discipline is a major issue. They can't even enforce dress code. But let me tell you about, since we're on that subject with the videotaping in the classrooms and videos in school. If they don't want these kids to videotape, they will, because I will tell you, my daughter in her English class in high school, and this is the only class it ever happened in, only in their English class, only when they were going into heavy discussion into one of these books. Okay. So they would go into, some type of class discussion. The teacher would literally go take every person's cell phone, put it in a box, put it up in the front of the room so that there was no chance of being videotaped for whatever they were getting ready to talk about. That's what happened in Edmond High School in my daughter's English class. Only class they'd take those phones like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to Ginger's point. Yeah, to Ginger's point about the teachers being beaten. As a classroom teacher, if I'm in a school and I have been in those schools where I had violent kids, I want those kids having that cell phone so that if the student does come and approach me, because we're not putting closed caption TVs, or cameras in the classrooms for documentation of that, I want a student to pull out their cell phone and videotape that student abusing me so that I can file assault charges against that student. And that's not happening, I guess, either. I don't know. Maybe Ginger can elaborate on that a little bit, as to what is happening with that and whether or not these teachers are able to file assault charges against these students that are doing that. I mean, that's the way you stop that.
Well, the ones that I've heard from, they try to keep it contained inside the school. They put them on workers' comp, and then, they take care of it that way. But they don't usually, or at least in these cases that I'm hearing from, it's trying to be kept in the school.
Yeah. And Ginger just said it traumatizes the other students in the classroom. Mm-hmm. And that is absolutely correct. I mean, even yes.
And I don't know what she's referring to, they're minors.
Yeah. Well, and we've got to figure out, how to address that as a society, not just Oklahoma, but as a society in general. If you can't charge the minor, then, maybe I don't know. We've got to figure out how to mitigate that situation, because we're losing classroom teachers because the kids are not being disciplined for those kinds of behaviors. So,
well, but again, let me point out that all of these problems that we brought up, and the Speaker of the House is, his priority is the budget and a cell phone bill. Julie says, I'm a teacher. I'm all for cameras in the classroom. I also can control the cell phones because I have great school administration.
Yeah, and that's amazing. I'm glad.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Ginger, I guess, is going back to, what she's talking about, all to protect one violent student, that nobody is going to do that. And, I'm with John Boy. I don't know why we don't charge the parents. If we can't charge the minors, then charge the parents. But we're at a point where, there are literally, I would never go back to teaching publicly in a public school. Because I'd be fired, because I would not allow any of that garbage in my classroom, and they'd want me out. But and I do want to point this out, because Mary said this: I predict the unions will not fight the no cell phone bill.
Well, and I was going to say that earlier, that I'm wondering where this came from, who conceived this and got the governor on board, got the Speaker of the House on board, and now they're pushing it.
Look what she said. We tried to pass a bill that would protect the younger grade teachers in Dorman, OICA, came out to protect the violent student. Yeah,
I remember that.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's not about the majority. It's about the minority.
Yeah.
Right.
It all goes, you know what? It all goes, the bottom line is this enforcement. If you are assaulting somebody at school, whether that be sexual, whether that be physical, whatever that is, we said, okay, we're going to correct this. We're going to put RSOs in our schools, resource officers in our schools. Your resource officers are not working for law enforcement. They're not working for constitutional rights. They're working for the school. Nobody is enforcing sexual assault. Nobody is enforcing physical assault. Nobody is enforcing it. A child that assaults somebody should be charged. Children can be charged. That's why we have the Oklahoma Juvenile Affairs. We have an office to charge children. Why are we not using it? Why is nobody being charged? Nobody wants to be the bad guy. Nobody wants to step up and say, you know what, that's the bad guy. And that's what we're seeing here in Shawnee, with the superintendent here in Shawnee.
I'm so glad you brought this up.
Well, Dr. Espelt, we have a superintendent who has been a predator to these kids for what, 30 years or 20 something years now. And when they started investigating him at the Oklahoma Department of Education, he had over 20 letters of support that was sent in to the Department of Education. These are people in our communities. These are people that sit on the school board. These are former state senators sending in letters of support for a pedophile. And then, he goes up there to the school. He's supposed to be on administrative leave. He's not staying out of the school. He goes up to the school. He's seen on campus numerous times. When he comes on campus, people welcome him with open arms. They're hugging him and all this. Talk about a slap in the face to his victims that came forward. Talk about a slap in the face. And we want to talk about, why would you not enforce? Why are we getting away with this? And it's because these predators are liked by people. They've groomed them. The entire community. They're liked by everybody, and nobody wants to be the bad guy. And nobody wants to be the bad guy and say, you know what, this guy is bad, and we're going to enforce these laws. We're going to, all this stuff.
And it victimizes our children all over again.
Absolutely. Because why would you not believe the victims, and why would you hug this man? Why would you send in letters of support for this man when these young women have come forward and said, this is what he did to us?
Yeah.
And
Mary makes the point, and she's made it several times on our program, that the culture of the school is the main problem. Because if you think to yourself, oh, I don't want this to get out because I don't want people to see that, so then you're going to cover it up. But it's not only that. I think it goes back to exactly what you said, Sherrie, about the legislature. And what we've heard sometimes about police departments and fire departments. These people come together. They've got a mission. They're educating children. This is their mission. Well, we can't let anybody stop our mission, right? So it becomes this Mary says it so much better.
She is very articulate.
But yeah, she's very articulate, but it just becomes this feeding. They feed each other. Oh, well, this didn't really happen. This couldn't have happened. We're all in this together. That couldn't be bad. It's the same way with police departments. You'll see police departments keep policemen who are violating people's constitutional rights. But, hey, they're a police officer, and then the union defends them. And it's like Mary said, a web of unions and nonprofits entrenched in the district are defending that man to the end. And that's exactly what it is. So where do taxpayers fit into that? Because we get shut out. We're not in the little group,
Which takes us back to this, and that point takes us back to the reason why broken trust was created in the first place, is because the institutions that are supposed to be protecting children are being weaponized against parents. And that's why it's called broken trust, because the trust is being broken between the education system and parents, between DHS and parents, and all sorts of other organizations that claim to be for protecting children. Well, if you are for protecting children, then let's blow this wide open and tell the truth about what's happening in our public schools, what's happening in our DHS system, and let's let everybody know. And that, one of the missions of Broken Trust is to educate and empower people to understand how to protect their families, how to protect their children, how to report these things when they see them or hear of them. It doesn't have to happen to their child in order for them to be responsible for reporting it to law enforcement and to the Department of Education. And that's one of the things that we've got to make sure that parents understand, is that when you hear of something happening, you don't go to the school first, because that gives them the opportunity to cover it up. And we've seen many, many schools cover it up and pass these people along to other communities where they go and continue their predation on other communities. And they go in and they groom them, and people rally around them and they say, oh my gosh, so-and-so wouldn't do that. He's such a good guy. He's a deacon in the church. He helps Little League. He, carries groceries for the elderly, all of this stuff. And then, so when the child does go and report this, then the community doesn't believe the child, which again, like I said earlier, violates the child all over again. And it violates the other students in the school who know this is happening, who see it happening in the classroom on a daily basis. Let's talk about our young teacher in Stillwater that was leading the teacher walkout page. In reading the court documents, you can see where there were kids that said this was happening. Other teachers saw it happening. The kids were going into his classroom. Girls were sitting behind his desk, sitting on his lap, all kinds of things that were completely inappropriate. And this is what I read in all of these court documents, these statements from people where the signs were there. The red flags were there, and nobody did anything about it because they didn't want to, and I'm going to put air quotes here, they didn't want to ruin the reputation of somebody in their building, and they don't want to ruin the reputation of the school. And that's the reason why it gets swept under the rug, because they're afraid of the reputation of the school and the community being damaged, and they're putting that over the protection of children. And I just don't understand that. I want to talk about the data. You say what you're going to say, but then I want to update you on the data.
Okay. Well, I was just going to make the point that you're making. I was just going to double down again on your point. We had Dr. Becky Pelham on the show, and she's watching again this morning. And she talked about how she spoke out about what was going on at Dove Charter School, how they were manipulating test scores, how this was happening at another school. They fire her, they get rid of her. I mean, nobody wants to help her. This isn't just the one, it's not just Dr. Becky Pelham. It's a whole bunch of people. And what you're saying, Sherrie, is 170,000 million% accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, but tell us how to fix that. So give us the data. But then Mary asks, what legislation do these ladies believe is needed? What mandatory enforcement and accountability needs to be written into these statutes? So let's close up because we're already at 1:30. So let's close up with
Okay.
your data. And then what, guys, are we going to do here?
So a year ago, I started with 39 names in my database. Today, I have
names of.
Predators in schools. And these are ones where I found news reports. I went on OSCN and found, documentation through the court system where they'd been charged. The majority of these people have been charged and have served time in prison or been on, long-term, some kind of probation type situation, which is not appropriate for sexual assault, but that's a whole nother story. Today, like I said, I started with 39 names a year ago. Today, I have 231 documented charged predators from the state of Oklahoma, just Oklahoma, 231. And I'm not even finished. I'm still digging. And every time I sit down to dig with my computer, I find more names and I find more cases, and I'm able to add to that list. Now, I've got about 280 names on that list. That the other ones that are not the sexual predators, they have done something criminal, something other than sexual assault. Things like child pornography, where they didn't assault a child in the school that they know of. I'm just going to add that caveat there. But they've been involved in child porn, or they've been involved in prostitution, or drunk at school, or
oh my God,
drug abuse, drug dealing, just some different things. So 281 educators, 231 of those are sexual predators. And again, like I said, every time I sit down with my computer, I add more names. So we've got several things to answer Mary's question. We've got several things, and girls chime in here with me, but we need to work on the 2-year reporting age limit, that a student cannot file a failure to protect or a civil rights violation against the school past the age of 20. So the day they turn 20, they no longer have the right to sue the school. That needs to be changed. We need to change the statute of limitations. If you look at the data, most people who are sexually assaulted as young people, that information, they don't share that information until well into their 40s, 50s, and 60s. And so changing that, the cutoff currently is 45. That needs to be changed. Mary has got some other ideas that need to be done. The one that I would like to see, and there's more that I would like to see, but one of the ideas that I had was that if your school is charged with failure to protect and you have either a criminal or a civil suit filed against your school, then your school board gets replaced and appointed by the governor. And then that school board is required to hire a new superintendent and possibly a new principal if there was a principal that was involved that knew and failed to protect that student or students. And so I think that would be, we need to figure out what that language looks like. I have not written that, but that was just one of the things that I came up with that I thought, the school boards are not being held accountable. Superintendents are not being held accountable. They're getting to keep their jobs while the students are fighting for their lives and trying to force schools to be held accountable for this. Our DAs are not filing charges against these leaders that are tasked with protecting our children. Our children go to school to be educated, but the first and foremost, the duty of the school is to keep the children safe. And if you can't keep the children safe, you're definitely not going to educate them, right? And so not properly. And so anyway, I do want to say that this is not a blanket statement across all schools. There are some schools that are doing it right. There are some schools and leadership that are they're doing their due diligence and they're firing and they're reporting these people. But there are some schools, if you look at the 8 cases that have already been settled for failure to report, I believe we've got 3 more that are being considered and litigated and negotiated right now. And so, we've got to stop that. There's a whole nother story about talking about the money that's being passed on to the taxpayers. The taxpayers are the ones being held accountable through their sinking fund. And so that's a whole nother topic.
It is, but we could at least say this. If the DAs were doing their job, they're paid by taxpayers. Mm-hmm. If the DAs were doing the job, then you wouldn't have Wowoka or Kingfisher taxpayers, property taxes. We don't even own our own homes because we're having to put in money for public schools in the first place. And now people in Wowoka, not in Kingfisher, that's an interesting story because the excise board said, no, you're not going to charge these taxpayers any more money. And you better get rid of some people at your school, some employees at your school. So what did they do? They fired everybody except for the coach that got them into the multi-million-dollar lawsuit.
Yep.
So that's how schools work.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So if DAs were doing their job and actually prosecuting these people, you would not have this situation where an excise board has to go to bat for the taxpayer, or the taxpayer gets stuck with having to pay extra property taxes to fund a judgment, multi-million-dollar judgment against the school for allowing their kid to get abused in whatever way. So there is that to be said. And I think we can sum that up pretty well just by saying that. Yeah. But it's gone beyond all reasonable thought. Yeah. All of this stuff has, and how it keeps going is just, I guess that if people really understood, and Roberta, I'm going to take a clip of your story and put it out there, because I think your story is the one that's probably going to wake the most people up. And if we don't get parents who awakened, if we don't get people awakened, because you have to know that if people knew this stuff was going on, they'd show up with pitchforks and torches down at Lincoln. I mean, that's what they did. Yeah. I mean, and let me say this, Dayna, we do need to get this information out about the effort on Saturday morning to collect signatures for the DHS investigation. Do you want to mention that really fast?
Yes. So tomorrow morning, starting at 8 a.m. at the Capitol, there'll be a group of people in the south parking lot. There'll be some trailers out there in the back parking lot, like campers that'll be parked out there, where there'll be volunteers for people to go and get signature sheets that they can take out and collect signatures to help the Oklahoma County petition that's been filed in obtaining those signatures. I actually don't remember the date off the top of my head of when they have to have those signatures in for, but
the 10th. The 10th.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's
they will be out there at the Capitol in the south parking lot starting at 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then there's also an effort, I believe, tonight at Scissortail Park, where they're also collecting signatures. You must be a registered Oklahoma County voter to sign this particular petition. Tulsa County has already completed theirs. Grady County also has a petition going. And then they're needing other counties to certainly sign up to have their petitions. But if anybody's interested in more information about that, you're welcome to reach out to me, or about the events that I just mentioned with Scissortail Park or the Capitol tomorrow.
All right. Well, ladies, we're probably going to have to wind it up because we're at 1:30. But Roberta, I kind of feel like we might have cut you off. Is there anything else you want to kind of update us on or steer us towards that you're doing out in Shawnee?
No, I just want to reiterate what Sherrie said, is that, we can make all this legislation, and if they're not being enforced, it doesn't matter. And so the bottom line is that we, the taxpayers, have the ability to fire our DAs for not doing their job. Like, we have the ability to do that, and we need to educate our taxpayers into what our DAs are doing and what they're not doing. And these excuses that it costs too much to charge a pedophile, that is ridiculous. And I want to say on our legislators, the last state school board meeting that we had, for 5 months, our legislators have been arguing and fussing to get into executive session because they want to know what goes on in executive session. And last month, they got to sit there and listen to 2.5 hours of every gory, disgusting detail of what these people are doing to our children. And 3 legislators, we have heard nothing from them. 5
That's
months.
a good point, Roberta. They were all up in arms, and yet who were the legislators that were there? Do you know?
Oh gosh, it was Lowe.
Dick Lowe has said nothing. He went into this and said nothing. So what else?
The woman that was there, what was her name?
Julia Kurt. And she did make a post about attending it. She said, but she didn't say a word about it as far as what happened, just that she attended the executive session because of concerns about potential misuse of taxpayer funds by the superintendent. Mm-hmm. Access to the executive meetings were just one of many concerns about his leadership.
Right.
Literally
so it was all about the superintendent and not about these people that are abusing children. Nope. So there you go, Julia Kurt, Dick Lowe. How about that?
And Dave Woolley
you can come on and explain why it is that you're more interested in a political spat with the superintendent than children in your state. Yep. So you come on and explain that to us, please.
But they can't
open invitation.
No matter what Ryan Walters is doing that they like or don't like, they can't get past their hatred of him in order to think about the bigger picture of protecting children of our state. It's horrifying.
And so my point is, we, the citizens, have the ability to change that. We have to see that, and we have to see that this is what they're doing. It was all a big show for 5 months. When McBride was over there, when Adam Pugh was over there, it was a big show. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. The little guy with the bow tie, I forget his name. They're going to do all of that.
Rosecrans.
Andy Fugate.
Fugate.
There was a big show, and we want to get into those executive sessions. We want to see, we want to hear what goes on. Well, they heard for 2.5 hours and not a peep out of any of them.
Yep.
And now all they can talk about is cell phones in our schools. Our children are being, everybody likes to say sexually assaulted. They're not being sexually assaulted. Our children are being raped in school. Okay. I hate that word because it dumbs down the word rape. It makes it like it's not, well, that word's too, that's a bad word. What happened was bad. We're not changing.
It's a trigger word. They're looking at it as a trigger word.
Yes. And so it should trigger you. It should trigger all kinds of emotions.
It should trigger all kinds of emotions. Yes.
I tell people, think about if that was your child.
That's right. Okay. And we can't even, we sat for 2.5 hours and listen to that, and all we care about is cell phones in our schools. I think that we got a problem here.
Distraction, 100%.
Okay, this takes me to the last thing that I want to say is that we've got 3 opportunities in Tulsa in the month of January to come and listen to the data and listen to the report. I have one on what's the Monday? Is it the 13th? The 10th? Ladies for Liberty, I believe. On the 10th.
13th.
Is that the 13th? Okay.
Yeah, 10th is a Friday.
Okay, so it's on a Monday, the 13th then. Yeah. So the 13th, I'll be in Tulsa talking about the data, and it won't be our full-blown, 2 or 3 hour presentation, but we're trying to get that scheduled for the 25th of January, also in Tulsa. Details to follow. I can follow up with you as soon as we shore up the date and the time for that. And then I will be there again on that following Monday, which is the 27th, I believe, at the event that Elena Ashley puts on in the evening for District 4? District 4, District 5.
Her monthly community meeting that she does.
Her monthly community meeting that Elena Ashley puts on. So, so 3 opportunities for Tulsa. I want to put it out there that if anybody that is listening now or hears this in the future, if you have a civic organization, a church group, or a political organization that you would like for us to come talk, we can come do a 3-hour presentation where we bring victim survivors of sexual abuse who can tell their stories about how this happened, how this all happened to them. And it actually is what catapulted this whole program. Or I can come and do like an hour-long presentation that's just on the data. So either way, we can do one or we can do both, whatever anybody wants.
Do you happen to have, because somebody asked just a second ago, we've had a lot of comments, and I'm sorry if I haven't gotten all of yours up, but we did have somebody who commented, is there a place where they can go find the data? Do you have it up on the website?
I have not put the data on the website. We've got to sit down with our person who's going to help us, our IT person that's going to help us with that. That's one of the things for 2025 that we're going to work on, is getting our website with all of the information that's needed there.
Got it. And would you give the website again, please, for people?
Yeah, it's excuse me, it's brokentrust.website. That's weird, I know, but brokentrust.com and .org were not available. So we need to do brokentrust.website.
I know how that works.
You can also
get
find
what
us
you
on
get, and you
social
can't
media.
throw a fit.
Yes, and you can find us on social media. Sorry, go ahead, Dayna, with that.
Yeah, you can also find us on social media. But the last thing I want to say is that there is a place for everyone to help with this.
Yes.
There is so many different aspects of all of this that your expertise, individual expertise, will be very much needed in some part of this.
Yes.
Whether it's behind the scenes, publicly, it doesn't matter. So please don't think that you can't help, because you absolutely 100% can help us with any of this. So feel free to reach out to us if you'd like to help in any way. We would certainly love the help and helping, get this out there to even more people, because there are people who still say they had no idea about this stuff. Elected officials, even, we've heard say that they didn't know about this. So please reach out, and we can definitely put you to work.
Yes.
So I did want to say, Mary says, this is going back to the discussion that we had that you brought up, Roberta, about, being there they wanted to be inside the meeting and they heard all this information and then said nothing about it. They said it was about funding. There's no discussion of funding in State Board of Ed executive sessions, only talk of teacher misconduct or sensitive legal issues. She also goes on to say, thank you to these grassroots warriors for kids and their communities. They have my 1000% support. So 1000%, guys, that's pretty high.
That's a lot. Thank you, Mary. And thank you to everybody who's been on today, listening and commenting. And like Dayna said, we could use the expertise of anybody who's willing to help us. If somebody could, we would love for somebody to take over the social media piece of it. We have an X account and a Facebook account. And, it's the three of us doing all of the work. Dayna and Roberta have really, really been amazing to bring them on board. And the three of us work together. We've got somebody else that's working with us as well. But we need research. We need social media. We need, somebody to help create content, especially since we're, getting ready to launch these the Broken Trust bullets or whatever it is that we're going to do. And so, anybody who wants to help, please reach out to us and we can put you to work.
Ladies, I just feel, Roberta, I did want to ask you, there was a question, I think it was from Ginger earlier on. I just didn't have a chance to get it on. How is your son now? And have you guys kind of recovered from that awful situation?
You're muted.
Oh, hold on. Unmute. Uh-oh.
Okay.
There you go. I can hear you now.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yes.
So my son is a rock star. We moved from Tecumseh Public Schools. We moved to another school district. He is a junior this year. He is starter of the basketball team. He actually is employed by the school. He works for the school in the summer. He works full-time, and during the year he works part-time as the janitor over there. He's a great kid. Everybody loves him.
Lost you again.
Keeps shutting you off. I don't know what's
Can you
happening.
hear me now?
There we go.
Yeah, I can. I don't
Can
know
you
why
hear
it
me
keeps shutting you off.
Okay. I think my microphone's going dead. Anyways, so he's a great kid. He does help in the community. He'll help anybody. Everybody knows him in the new district. So he's recovered well, and it's something that now we can kind of look back and we kind of laugh at him. I always tell people we're not a gentle parenting household. If you do something wrong, we will roast you for the rest of your life. And so, it's something we just kind of laugh it off and go on. But it is a learning experience. Yeah. And we learned a lot. We went hunting this last deer season and we took 0 photos. Nobody took pictures.
Yeah, but that's not okay either, though. You know what I mean? I mean, we can't get into a spot where, because I went to January 6th, right? I was an insurrectionist. I mean, never even went into the building. But I remember, because of the fact that I was mayor of the town at the time and all, I remember it really kind of chilled my speech for a while. And then you look back on it and you think, oh, wow, I should never have done that. We can't let this stuff chill our ability to speak and to say what we want. We just can't. And we have to stand up to them and go, I'll do what I want. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, I think he's got enough of that in him. But maybe we think about the things we do before we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Still in all, I just feel like,
last thing, it's real funny because after 14 days of being in the mental hospital, he got out and they had to give him a diagnosis, and they diagnosed him with impulse control. And I thought, that is the funniest thing I've ever heard. I could have saved us all a lot of time and energy by telling you my 14-year-old son has impulse control problems, people.
Because he's 14. What 14-year-old does not?
14-year-old boy. Yeah.
I know 44-year-old people who don't have impulse control.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
All right. Well, glad to hear that, Roberta. And wow, you are a rock. You and your family are rock stars for, overcoming that and, moving on from such a thing. But we've got to this shouldn't happen, period. And we shouldn't just say, oh, wow, isn't it, great that you got over it? I mean, that's not the bottom line. The bottom line is this should not ever happen. And I just can't tell you how much I appreciate you ladies for coming on today. We had so many people on this morning and so many people wanting to comment so that we know for a fact that this is important and what you're doing is important and people care. So thank you so much for doing that and being who you are, and the people who are willing to, stiff arm our government and tell them to go take a flying leap. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
And also, Sherrie, make sure, and you guys, when you have something, make sure you tag me on social media or send it to me or something so that I can get it out, because that is one of the things that we really want to do in the upcoming year, is to be more of a news organization, because we don't have news in Oklahoma. We have propaganda, and we want to be a better news source, and we want to provide this information to the community when you have it. So please make sure that you're doing that, because we're happy to put that stuff out in the newsletter on, whatever. So please do that. And thank you so much, everybody, for being with us today. I just can't tell you thank you enough. It was hard coming back. It was a little hard to get back into the scheme of things, but we will be back next week, and I can tell you who's going to be on next week if you'll give me 1 second. We have Kendra Wesson is going to be on next week, and she's going to talk about the state school board and some things that she's learned from being a state school board member, and that'll be a good conversation. So please tune in for that. And then on the 10th, we're going to have Peter Murphy from an organization called CFACT, which is, I didn't find out until I wrote an article for the Federalist just recently about our governor, who likes to go all over the world trying to bring green businesses here and then getting us Oklahoma taxpayers paid for it. So I wrote that article, and then this Peter Murphy reached out to me from CFACT and said, look, we've been trying to warn people about the green agenda forever. And they have a great website with a lot of great information. I said, great, then come on our show and talk about it. So he's going to be on next Friday to talk about the green scam. And I hope everybody will tune in for that, because that's the other thing that made me so irritated about the whole, Hilbert cell phone, getting a budget and cell phone bill passed was what he wanted to do for the upcoming legislative session. We have too many people losing their property and the enjoyment of their property to wind turbines or solar arrays or whatever. And this has to stop, and we've got to get control on it. And that happens at the legislature, where their job is to protect their citizens. And that means the enjoyment of their property and their personal liberty and well-being. So, be sure to tune in for that. And anything else before we get off of here, ladies?
Nope. That's it.
Perfect. Then we will see you again next Wednesday at 9 a.m. right here.
Yeah.
And have a great weekend and have a wonderful start to your 2025.
Yeah. Thanks, Jenny.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.